Welcome to Square the Circle, where I share my notes on some wonderful books I've read and insightful things that I've come across in life. Today, what we look at is the Pyramid Principle, a book that was written by Barbara Minto, with focus on logic in writing and thinking. From the introduction on chapter 1, it was Alimi who said, "There is nothing so useful as a good theory." One of the least pleasant aspects of a professional person's job is the need to put things in writing. We always work with assumptions that making your writings clear means to be more direct, but rather focus should be on writing style and the structure of the documents, the order in which the documents appear, regardless of whether they are poorly written. When a writer forces himself to match the structure of his writing with the reader's mind, he discovers that he has clarified his own thinking sufficiently to write better. Why a pyramid structure? Number one, the mind automatically sorts information into distinctive pyramidal groupings in order to comprehend it. Number two, any grouping of ideas is easier to comprehend if it arrives pre-sorted into pyramid. Number three, this suggests that every written document should be deliberately structured to form a pyramid of ideas. An example is this: when you hear the phrase nuclear family, your mind begins to immediately arrange father, mother, and children. But when you walk into a supermarket to find vegetables like potatoes and carrots in a section designated for kitchen utensils, it appears awkward, and you will not remember to check for it in that section in another supermarket because it appears out of place. Putting your writing or thinking in form of a pyramid groups means they must obey three rules. Number one, ideas at any level in the pyramid must always be summaries of the ideas grouped below them. Number two, ideas in each grouping must always be same kind of ideas. Number three, ideas in each grouping must always be logically ordered. In chapter 2, we talked about the substructures in each pyramid. A clear piece of writing establishes a rigid set of relationships between its ideas so that they will form a comprehensive pyramidal structure. It then presents the ideas to the reader starting at the top and walking down each leg. The pyramid dictates a rigid set of substructures that can serve to speed the discovery process. They are: number one, the vertical relationships between points and subpoints. Number two, the horizontal relationship within a set of subpoints. Number three, the narrative flow of the introduction. An example is this: 1. Men are mortal. 2. Socrates is a man. 3. Therefore, Socrates is a mortal. In chapter 3, he talked about how to build a pyramid structure. And we looked at it from this perspective of the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach. In the top-down approach, number one, what subject are you discussing? Number two, what questions are you answering in the reader's mind about the subject? Number three, what is the answer? In the bottom-up approach, there may be often times that you cannot decide precisely what your subject is, or the question is not clear to you. So you use the bottom-up approach. So you will follow this guide. A. List all the points you think you want to make. B. Work out the relationship between them. C. draw conclusions. However, there are caveats for beginners. It is clear that the rigidity of the pyramid rules enable you to start with an idea anywhere in the pyramid and discover all the others. Number 1 rule: always stay top down first. Number 2, use the situation as a starting point for thinking through the introduction. Number 3, don't commit to think through the introduction. Number 4, always put historical chronology in the introduction. Number 5, limit the introduction to what the reader will agree is true. Number 6, be sure to support all key line points. In chapter 4, we talked about 5 points of introduction. Thinking through the introduction is the key step in discovering the ideas that must be presented in a document. You always want to build on readers' interest in the subject by telling them a story about it. For example, if I say to you, 2 Irish men that met on a bridge at midnight in a strange city, and I did not conclude the story, it builds your interest in it. So firstly, consider using a strong story to start. Secondly, the length of the introduction should be considered. Thirdly, where the situation starts from should be considered. A key characteristic of a good opening situation sentence is that they leave you expectant of further information. Some examples and common patterns are mentioned in this book. In chapter 5, it talked about deduction and induction. What's the difference? The 2 forms of reasoning pattern that are available for establishing logical relationship between ideas are deductive and inductive reasoning. An argument in which a conclusion is inferred from 2 premises, one major or minor, is a deductive reasoning. Example: men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. In inductive reasoning, the mind notices that several different things, ideas, events, facts are similar in some way, brings them together in a group and commits on the significance of their similarities. Example: to say that armored tanks that belong to France, Germany, and Russia are the border of Poland could be like a warlike scenario against Poland. Hence, an inference is drawn that Poland is about to be invaded. However, the event has been defined as preparation of Poland's allies to attack the whole of Europe. How it differs? When you are thinking deductively, your second point will always comment on the subject or predicate on the first. In inductive ideas, you generally either hold the subject constant and vary the predicate, or hold the predicate constant and vary the subject. In chapter 6, we talked about how to highlight the structure. Your ideas on the page must appear in a way that emphasize the various divisive of thoughts. To this end, you want to make sure you thoroughly understand the rules before you begin application. So we'll take note of headings, the underline points, decimal numberings, and indented display. Headings. Your headings will represent divisions of thoughts. Their use should reflect the relationship between the ideas inherent in the pyramid. To this end, you want to take care of that. You notice these rules. Number 1, never use only one of any element. Number 2, show parallel ideas in parallel form. Number 3, limit the wording to the sequence, to the essence of the thought. Number 4, don't regard headings as part of the text. Number 5, introduce each group of the headings. Number 6, don't overdo. Underlined points. The purpose of underlined point is to achieve speed reading. So underline the entire statement of the support points below the key line level. Firstly, be absolutely disciplined in applying question and answer logic. Secondly, be careful to word the point so that they state their message as sparsely as possible. Thirdly, be totally ruthless in limiting your point to the outline of your deductive or inductive arguments. Decimal numbering. Many companies and most government institutions like to use numbers rather than headings to emphasize the subdivisions of a document. Then indented display. The size of documents and grouping of ideas will influence the indent pattern. In the section 2 of this book, it talks about logic in thinking. Once you put ideas in writing, they take an incredible beauty in the author's eyes. They seem to glow with a fire patina that you will be quite reluctant to disturb. There is a checklist of rules you apply to every grouping in the thinking structure, which are: number 1, question the general order of the ideas in a grouping. Number 2, question their particular source in your problem-solving process. Number 3, you can question your summary statement about them. Number 4, you question the prose in which you express them. In chapter 7, they talked about question the order of the grouping. You need to know how to make choice and how to judge that you have made the right choice. To this end, you must understand that ideas grouped together in a writing are never brought there by chance. They always peek out of your mind because it seems them as having a logical relationship. At least they are always picked out of your mind. The mind can perform probably only 3 analytical activities of this nature, which are: 1, it can determine the cause of an effect. 2, it can divide whole into parts. 3, it can classify things. Now we talk about time order, structural order, and ranking order. Time order, which means spelling out the steps a person must take to achieve a particular effect in the order in which he must take them. Structural order, which is the order that reflects what you see once you have visualized something either by diagram or map. Ranking order, the order you impose on a grouping when it brings together a set of things you have classified as being alike because they possess a characteristic in common. In chapter 8, we talked about questioning the problem-solving process. Ideally, problem-solving begins with problem setting, i.e., identifying precisely what you mean by the problem and how you will know when you have achieved a solution. When you identify a problem, essentially what you do is recognize that a particular situation yields specific results. Robert Oland, in his manner Sequential Analysis, published by McKinsey and Company in 1972, said, the process consists of answering a series of questions in a logical sequence, which are: number 1, what is the problem? Number 2, where does it lie? Number 3, why does it exist? Number 4, what could we do about it? Number 5, what should we do about it? Whenever you outline the problem in a system, you are by implication stating the action that must be taken to correct the problems. Thus, as a rule of thumb, you should always organize information on changes needed. In chapter 9, he talked about questioning the summary statements. We come at last to consider the first rule of the pyramid. Ideas at any level must be summaries of the ideas grouped below them because they are in fact derived from them. So you look at the following rows: stating the effect of actions, make the word specifics, distinguish the level of action, drawing inferences from conclusions, find the structural similarity, and finally visualize the relationship. In chapter 10, he talked about putting it into readable words. To compose clear sentences, then you must begin by seeing what you are talking about. Once you have the image, you simply copy it into words. Your reader in turn will recreate this image from your words, thereby not only grasping your thinking but enjoying the exercise. Create the image, copy the image in words. Professor William Minto said, in writing, you are as a commander filing out his battalion through a narrow gap that allows only one man at a time to pass. And that your reader, as he receives the troops, as to reform and reconstruct them. No matter how large or how involved the subject, it can be communicated only in these ways. Now we should take note of this, that when you have 10 points listed, it is easier to remember the first 3 than to remember the last 3 or the last 5 or the entire 10. So if your ideas can be created into 3 points, you might be able to make a lasting impression in the mind of the reader. So therefore, go down and do likewise. Thank you for watching this video online. I hope we've been able to help you.